Hello, my name is Stuart. I'm the unrepentant atheist, and what I'd like to talk to you today about is a video that I saw on YouTube featuring Richard Dawkins and a creationist by the name of Wendy Wright. So it's quite possible a lot of you have already seen it. It appears a lot in my streams and everything, and I'm sure that a lot of you have already seen it. But anyway, I thought that I would add my thoughts to the actual exchange between them. But before that, what sort of led me to it was an episode of the Atheist Experience, which I saw, um, or rather a clip from the Atheist Experience, which I saw a few days ago. And I must admit, I've seen it on a previous occasion, and it's one of those calls that left me sort of dumbfounded with disbelief that anybody could be so um, calculatingly almost dumb, thinking that they're being clever. And in this particular episode, um, effectively, somebody came on and said that everything about evolution that he's been able to find on various websites like Talk Origins, etc., or university websites, he was saying they're just claims. they're just they're just claims. And um, of course, the hosts, I think Matt, I think it was Jen, were saying, well, no, they're not just claims, there's evidence too. And he was saying, well, where's the evidence? And then, of course, they followed the natural path, which is that you can find the evidence if you do the research, if you go to the right places, you can go to the museums. And then he's countering, saying, yes, but everything that's in there is just a claim. And he kept repeating this so many times that I think that I think that in the end they put the phone down on him because they realized that he wasn't really interested in doing the research, and he was rebutting them for no good reasons and just repeating the assertion. Well, it's just a claim. It's a claim. It's a claim. And I think in the end uh, he started making some completely absurd complaint, which I think might have been at the root of the whole phone call, which is that he's paying his tax dollars to prop up museums, which are effectively are just making baseless claims with no real evidence, that everything's just a claim. And the whole thing just became so utterly irritating and a farce, really. But it made me realize that um, many years ago there was a trial in America. Maybe you remember it. There was a British nanny who was accused of killing a child, and all the science presented, which was quite complex, uh, seemed to suggest that, or seemed to indicate very strongly that there was a reasonable doubt that she was guilty. And nevertheless, the jury, on a unanimous basis, found her guilty. And the judge wrote in his summing up um, that a jury had got the right to disregard solid evidence. He could direct them, but they have the right to reject um, virtually conclusive evidence. That's how the justice system works. You can put evidence in front of somebody, and no matter how conclusive it is, they have the right to say no and reject it. And so this brings me back to Wendy Wright. I hope it all sounds all relevant to you, because obviously we live in a world where we're evaluating all the time. We've got evidence literally around us 24 hours a day. That's how we make we base decisions in our life on a minute to minute basis on the evidence which is around us. I mean, for example, if I heard the fire alarm bell suddenly start ringing, I wouldn't question if I'm a brain in a vat or whether it's all real. I would get the hell out of the building. So I've got the evidence and I'm making the decision to leave the building. But when we come to um, subjects like religion, we could almost say, almost non-consequential, that if you make the wrong decision or if you decide to disregard some evidence, it's not going to cause you a great deal of trouble on the face of it. So if you reject, for example, a well-established scientific theory like evolution, If you reject it, you can reject it and you can ignore the evidence. It's not going to have a great impact on your life. But obviously, not running out of a building if a fire alarm's ringing will have a big impact on your life. And I almost think it's like a bit of a cheat that you've got double standards. When it's affecting your personal safety, you will take the rational route. You will really consider the evidence. Um, but if you've got any kind of confirmation bias, if you've got any preconceived beliefs, you will reject completely sound evidence, or a lot of people will. I'm not saying everybody will, but a lot of people will reject completely sound evidence. I may have done it myself. I've got political biases, and there have been times when I've seen evidence for something, and my political bias has made me reject that evidence. And it's the same thing with religion. You can take on and believe a whole lot of nonsense, and it's not going to have a great, on the face of it, it's not going to have a massive impact on your life. And so, coming to Wendy Wright, anyway, who is Wendy Wright? Well, first of all, let me just tell you quickly about Richard Dawkins. So he did a program, I think, for the BBC in 2008 called The Genius of Charles Darwin. I think it was a series. It's a shame I've not seen it. I would like to go back and catch up with it if I can find those. Um, but he did one episode called God Strikes Back, and in this episode, he interviewed Wendy Wright, who is, let me see, what is she? I've got my notes here. So, according to Wikipedia, she's an American social conservatism strategist. Um, she's a member of an organization called Concerned Women for America, which is a political action committee, and she's anti-abortion. She has been chief executive officer of an organization called Christian Freedom International, which is concerned with global persecution of Christians. So obviously I suppose she's on the religious right, and she's trying to push an agenda. And I think one of the things that she's interested in, apart from anti-abortion, is getting creationism as a competing idea, shall we say? I won't call it a theory, into science classrooms. This is something which it seems that she's quite keen on. So I've got to hand it to her. I mean, to agree to be interviewed by Richard Dawkins, probably the world's most famous evolutionary biologist, an expert in his field. I've got to give her credit for facing him, and likewise, I've got to give Richard Dawkins credit for facing her, because he's an incredibly composed person, and obviously it comes across in this interview. And to give credit to her, she maintains her composure as well. I was actually quite impressed. Of course, the actual substance of what she was saying, I didn't agree with, and I thought she used many strategies just to simply block what Dawkins was saying. But let's get on to what they actually discussed. So he came to her, and he spent over an hour with her. It was absolutely amazing. They were both standing, I think, in an office. He came into her territory, and they were literally just standing. And I think there was a cameraman who was monitoring and filming the whole thing, and doing a great job actually of capturing all the facial expressions, etc. So, I mean, essentially, Dawkins was asking her whether she's why she wants to see evolution challenged by creationism in schools, for example. And she was saying that for for evolution, that from her point of view, she's interested in facts, and she's interested in what the evidence says, and then she's asserting that for evolution, the evidence just isn't there, and that as far as she's concerned, children should be made aware of this, that the evidence does not support evolution, etc., etc. And of course, Richard Dawkins was countering and saying, well, I'm astonished to hear you say that. The evidence is there, if only you'll see. And if you will go to the museums, if you go to various websites, if you will read books on evolution, the beauty and the elegance of the science behind evolution is so amazing. It's much more interesting than just saying that God did it. And of course, she kept coming back to this. Well, there's no evidence. There's no evidence. There are no transition forms. You can't convince us. The evidence is not there to show how we went from slime to human beings. And actually, she mentioned this slime thing, slime to human beings, on, I don't know, at least 3 or 4 different occasions. I'm surprised in a way that Richard Dawkins didn't really challenge her on that, because um, she's simplifying evolution and really making a mockery of it, demonstrating effectively how little she seems to understand. And it became apparent to me very, very quickly, because she had an interesting angle. Well, I say interesting, at least she had an angle and there's a rationale to it. And effectively, what Dawkins managed to get out of her, which I think was quite good, and he did concede 1 or 2 things as well, is that she believed that um, the way that a society um, behaves and operates on a moral basis is a direct consequence of how we came to be here. And that if we were created with love by a loving God, then it's much more likely that we're going to live in a loving society, well ordered and with proper morals, and everybody behaving themselves and everybody being happy. And to Richard Dawkins' credit, he could see the sense in this, and he did concede that he wouldn't want to see a Darwinist society. He wouldn't want to see a society run on Darwinist principles, because it would naturally crush the weak and allow the strong to prosper. It's quite ironic that, because in many ways that's exactly the kind of society we've got. But that's something for another time. I'm sure a lot of you will disagree with that, but so I was sort of laughing a bit when he said that. But I mean, taken to its extreme level, we've got Hitlerism, we've got the Nazis in the 30s, who were trying to destroy the weak and bring up the genetic quality of the race. And I think that's what he was referring to. And he said, yes, I agree that in terms of running a society, Darwinism is absolutely not the way to go. But he was concerned as a scientist with the facts and about how we got here, and that evolution is brutal. The way that we've come about is through natural selection, meaning that less well-adapted species are killed off literally by nature. And well, I don't need to give you a biology lesson, but so he was going down this route, and he was conceding where necessary, when he thought it was fair to concede, but she didn't really take on board that point, because then she went straight back to, well, yeah, but evolution hasn't really got the facts to back it up, and she kept on asserting this, and she kept on repeating it so many times that it made me think about that telephone call into the atheist experience, where the man was just saying, well, you've got these museums, you've got this, that, and the other, you've got the academic papers, and you've got this so-called peer review process, but they're all just claims. They're just claims. And she was saying, well, the facts aren't there. You haven't got the transitional forms, etc., etc. And show me an actual, instance of a transitional form. Show me the fossil. Where are they? And you haven't got them because the evidence isn't there. And it, in a way, I find it quite absurd. I'm sure that people who are watching, who are not, maybe even some of those who are even creationists, would say, well, she's going a bit too far there in just completely rebutting and saying, well, the evidence isn't there, it isn't there. Because you can say that about anything. I could speak to somebody on the Holocaust. Lots of Holocaust deniers, unfortunately. So if I speak to an expert on the Holocaust, and I'm a Holocaust denier, and I just say, well, you haven't got the evidence. And he say, well, we've got the evidence, we've got the memoirs, etc. We've got the bones of the people, we've got all the wigs and all the golden teeth that were pulled out, and Yeah, but I mean, anybody could have fabricated those. It's just claims. It's just claims. It's all nonsense. Where are these people? Let me speak to them. And they'll say, well, there's one still alive. He's 98 years old. Oh, you've just taken some 98-year-old man there and you've just taught him a lot of rubbish to tell me. It's all just claims. So, what I'm getting at is you can say this about anything. I mean, you can say it about anything where you've got a body of scientific evidence, or should we say historical evidence, academic evidence, which um, backs up a hypothesis. We've got proper scientific theories. You can take it to its extreme and say, "Oh, it's just all claims." You fabricated it all. Now, this is what this is what conspiracy theorists are doing, and really, I see her in a way a little bit like a conspiracy theorist. That they've constructed this wall of ignorance and almost deafness that they're not prepared to actually accept proper evidence which is out there. Flat Earth, for example, you can say to them, well, if you go up in an aeroplane, you go to 10,000 meters or 15,000 meters, whatever it is, you can see the curvature of the Earth. No, you can't. You can't. That's fabrication. It's the actual curvature on the window of the aeroplane. That's what you can see. You can't see the curvature at all. It's all fabricated, all these pictures from space and everything. Okay, so um, no matter how robust, no matter how robust the science is, and no matter how much evidence there is for something, um, there will always be people who will say, well, it's just claims and it's just false, and I don't believe it. And it's coming back to the judge in that um, English nanny trial, and he said that juries have got the right to reject concrete evidence, and everybody has got the right to reject. I feel that evolution is pretty much concrete based on everything that I've read. Of course, I'm not an expert, but it seems to me that from the layman's kind of reading that I've done, that the evidence is fairly solid. And he did present examples to her. She said, "Well, give me some examples." This Wendy Wright, and he gave her some examples. Um, I mean, he gave her an example of a particular type of wasp that kills its prey by torturing them. And he gave her one or two other examples which completely illustrate evolution and how it works and what specific evidence we've got. Homo erectus and all these, all the different species, subspecies of man, and how they've evolved, and how um, you can go to Natural History Museum, and they've got brilliant display demonstrations showing you how man has actually evolved to Homo sapien. You can see it. You can see the progression, and that man is essentially a great ape. And she's just blocking. She's got this wall that she's erected because she's got this schema in her head that A, God exists, B, he created man, and that it must be so, because if he hadn't created man with love, we couldn't possibly have a loving, good and fair society. She's got this model in her head, this perfect model in her head, and she's not prepared to accept anything that will contradict that. And she just keeps asserting that there's no evidence. And I must admit, she does it very, very well. As I said, I felt that she kept her composure very well. Of course, the kind of false smile that she's got on her face, and I couldn't help thinking, this is bringing my own personal feelings in here, that, um, I mean, taking away all the kind of condescending smugness and all the ignorance that she's got and all the stubborn ignorance, that if she dropped all that rubbish, she'd actually be a very nice woman. I think she's quite an attractive woman, but for all the nonsense that she's got inside her. And I think at the root of it is a kind of dishonesty about how she wants the world to be, how she wishes that the world would be, and how she wishes, how the evidence would demonstrate how she wants the origins of life to be. In other words, that God created it all with love, etc., and that's how we're going to have a loving society. But she's not seeing reality, and she's having to be false. You can see the falseness in her smile. In my opinion, it's my own subjective opinion. You may disagree. Go and watch the video. I'm going to post a link. But she looks to me very false. She looks to me as well like she doesn't really truly believe what she's saying. So I do give her credit though for keeping it up for so long, because she went the whole interview went on for about well over an hour. It was quite amazing. It's really worth watching, and um, I don't think I've got anything too much more to say about it. Only that I just keep coming back to what that judge said. I remember it so well that yes, everybody's got the right. He was talking about a jury in a case where somebody could go to the prison for the rest of their lives. There's no law to coerce a jury into accepting fairly well established scientific evidence. That's how the justice system works. It can't do. It can't do that. It's better to have some mistrials now and again and accept that the justice system isn't perfect, because it's important that juries are autonomous, obviously, and they make their own decisions. I think it's a good system on the whole. So everybody's got the right to reject evidence, even for irrational, illogical reasons. And I think probably we've got to be a bit more tolerant of it, because people will do it. A lot of people are idealists. They want the world to be in a particular. They want to be the world to conform to the schema, an idealistic schema that they've got in their head, and you can't blame them for that. But more often than that, more often than not, the facts contradict what they actually believe, as is the case with Wendy Wright. So, well, let me know what you think. I'll post a link to that, and I wish you will go and look at it if you haven't seen it. And you don't necessarily have to watch the whole thing. You can maybe watch little bits of it here, and let me know what you think of it. Do you think my comments are fair, or and do you also agree with me that everybody's got the right to reject perfectly sound evidence, but that there's a price for it, and accepting that maybe at some time in our lives we've all done it ourselves because of confirmation bias that we've already got our own views, and we can sometimes do it ourselves, and we have to guard against it. So, well, that's all for now. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. Thank you for watching me, and I'll see you very soon.